Hello everyone, my name's Tris and I'm going to talk to you about my trip down to the Great Central Railway. But before I talk about that, I'm going to show you what I picked up. And at the stand that was collecting money for the Unknown Warrior, the Patriot class, I collected myself a pen and some other bits, and I picked up a nice little package. It wasn't too expensive and it all goes towards this wonderful cause that getting this loco running again. If you would like to see one running, then I'd advise you to look up these guys and you can find out all about the project, the money they've spent in it so far, all the progress. It's very interesting. But this is a loco I picked up for £35. And it seems like I'm picking up all sorts of bargains at the moment, but they are around. It's DCC ready and it's a wonderful looking loco. It's Bachmann, it's not a split chassis, and that's something that I got very excited about when I saw it's a DCC ready, because I knew it would be that kind of loco. I have no complaints, I have no idea what the condition of the loco is, and I mean that. So we're going to get it out and have a look and see how it runs. I very excitedly got home from the show, got the camera out, and I thought, let's make a video. It stands out, this loco, for me because of the large boiler. When you look at it, it's the same diameter from the front to the back, and that just pops at you, doesn't it? It's nice. It's got the normal moulded in details. It's got a blank cab at the back, and yeah, it's a nice enough loco. It looks decent. I don't know what's missing. You've got the steps there that probably should be there. I think we'll get them back in there. I have a collection that I had for the Great Western ones, but I think I've got some BR ones as well, some brass etches. Looking at it a little bit more, I did notice the drawbar looks a little bit homemade. I thought, well, let's see how that one works out, but we could just go from there, see how it fares for us. There will be many more shots of the Great Central Railway through this video. I enjoy going there. It's one of my favourite railways. Tony from Tony's Trains does some firing whilst he's there for the locos, which I think is wonderful. So it's always nice to hear his stories. That's Groot observing everything. Hopefully he'll keep his hands off as they go around, but I enjoy having him around. What we'll do is we'll see how well this loco runs. The wheels are reasonably clean by the look of it. I haven't bothered cleaning them because they look pretty shiny, but I'm sure a bit of clean-up work will help it, and we'll see how it runs. Getting the bar into the tender is a little bit tricky, but after a bit of faffing, we get it on there. We won't pull anything just yet. We'll just run it forwards and backwards and see what it sounds like. It's already got a squeak on it. What we'll do is we'll give it a pull round. There might be some of you shouting at me saying, no, service it first. But, yeah, that coupling's really low as well. Going on there. Right, that's on there. It's on the shorter setting here, so I might have some trouble. Notice some handlebars missing, but we'll look at it in detail in a minute. Not too bad, it's got a little squeak to it. The tender seems to be jacking itself around for whatever reason. I need to play with that and fix that, but that's not so good, but we can fix it. It's got a funny squeak to it as well. I'll fix the tender for a moment and see if we can get it running nicer. I have moved, well, bent the drawbar up, and that should help it. But it's got that squeak still. Bit of a bounce when it's going around the corners. We'll figure it out, right? Bit of servicing, I'm sure we'll get it all sorted. Obviously I've got some very nice Great Western rolling stock behind it. I think that's alright, right? Now it's time to take a closer look at this loco. Do I need to clean it? Yes. I need to get a brush out and give it a clean off. I need to think about the things that I'm going to add to it, the brass details, find out where they are on my boxes and go from there. But getting one of my brushes that I always use for cleaning the locos, I dust it off and I go over all the little areas because we're going to be putting some paint on there. We're going to be adding some details. And it's quite important that there's no dust for when the paint goes on, otherwise you get extra texture you weren't after. As well as make sure your hands are clean so you don't add a load of greases. The firebox area, it needs to be painted. I will be doing that. But as a whole, I think this is going to look great. I'm really pleased with what I've got to work with. It's a very detailed model, I feel, for the time that it came out. And I'm looking forward to get certain details back on there. It's missing certain handlebars and bits, so now with a bit of clean up, like we've got a bit of oil all over this wheel and this one, we'll just clean it up, make it nice, so then when we add the paint it's good. So I start off with the customary getting rid of the smoke box door handles, and I'm going to add my own one. So I snip them off, get a knife and trim it smooth, and then file it flat, so then I have no details left. Then using a drill I simply make a hole. Using the Comet Models smokebox door handles, we add this to this area. It's very simple. We have a dart that goes in place there. I just use a bit of super glue to hold it in. Then I grab one of the handles. And this can be tricky, but you poke the dart through the handle end and drop that in place. Afterwards, I add a second one, in which then I add some glue and I position it to how I want. So I get a bit of thin glue and I just drop it on both of them, and it normally wicks in to go onto the darts as well as the smoke box handles. And once I get them to the position that I want, once we've got that in there, it should hold there. So if you watch that, it's drying as I'm pushing it around. Then the bit that's sticking out, simply trim it off the size, and there you go. If it does end up being a bit spiky, gently file the end over. I always love seeing a 9F, but moving on to vacuum pipes, these are some very nice machined ones, which I was quite excited to have. I've not had these before. They're normally cast in white metal. I glue it to the shape that I want, and then I add it to the loco. This was an area where it was missing, there's no details in the packet, but for £35 I cannot complain, and adding these brass details somehow makes this thing pop. It's going to be a real shame to paint this when it's done, because they do stand out. That's at a slight angle there. I don't notice until I'm doing the editing afterwards, but I think it's fine. I then add some handle offset bar bits. You saw the name of it. These are the small offset ones, or the short offset ones. and this means that they look a bit more low profile. I then use some 0.4 nickel silver rod, and that, quite simply, it pokes through. And I start, instead of gluing it on straight away, I poke it through, so then I can cut it to length and then I glue it on afterwards. I used to go through the mistake of gluing it on and then trimming it, and then you'd always have a spiky bit. So now I can snip off the piece and then move it back, put a dab of glue on, I can pull it through and it's to the length that I want, and I don't have to trim anything or file it afterwards. And it's looking nice. Again, it's going to be a shame to paint it, but we're going to have to paint it black anyway. Now, moving over to the loco and those steps that were missing. I've got this pack, it says BR standard loco steps, right? I feel these are the only ones that look close to it. I'm sure they're completely not right. I need to get hold of some LNER ones, but it's me, my layout. I accept these might not be right, but I'm kind of at the same time not fussed because they look like the right kind of thing. And if I want to in the future, I can always take these off and add some new ones. The etches are easy, bit of glue, bending them around, and you could put them on. You could solder it if you want, but I did it on some previous ones and it's a bit excessive. But they're nice looking parts. Again, it would be such a shame to paint them. These etches are just wonderful and they don't cost too much. Now it's on to the simple task of painting. I use my acrylic paints. I don't bother with any primers or anything like that. I go straight for just painting it straight on and thinning it down. Initially you'll be thinking, well, I can still see the brass through it. Thinning it down gives you a chance to put a nice equal, nice uniform layer on there. If you go on with the thicker coats, you'll get lumps and all sorts. So be patient with it. Do 2 or 3 thin coats and you'll get what looks like, well, to me at least, a nice looking part. After that I add some red on at the bottom so it matches where the buffer plates are at the front. And on the back where there was a vacuum pipe still installed, I also added that detail in to make it look nice. Then using my rail match roof dirt, I mix them up into the pot, I thin it down quite well, and we run it over the cab roof, and I burn down the top of the boiler as well as dust over the top of the tender just to knock off that uniform black that's everywhere. I then do a bit more focusing on the front of the smoke box, and I do a mixture of where the black as well as the roof dirt on that one just to add a bit more to kind of the colours that are going on opposed to being one colour. I run it down the running plates. And then I focus on the wheels after that. I put some frame dirt on the wheels. And you have to turn them around with the 9-volt battery. And so then you don't end up having these big lines left over from where the commods are. And I just work my way around. And as you can see, they're starting to have a more weathered look to them. This doesn't take too much effort to do. And you don't have to go too far with it. You can dial back a bit, and I guess if you regretted what you did, you could dust it over with a bit of black to hide what you've been doing. So you can see what I'm doing here. It's nothing that you haven't seen before. After that, I'm adding a bit of the rusty colour around the axle boxes and on the front of the cylinder ends. I've watched a number of different videos recently. Mouldy Raspberry put a video out and I've taken a lot of inspiration off what he's done, and it's made me think, do you know what, let's have a go. I've got this logo, didn't cost me too much, so let's have a go. I've gone through the same process what he's gone here and masked off the wheels, and I'm going to be painting the boiler with a satin coats to brighten it up, which will look a bit bright to begin with, but we are going to dial it back down in a bit.
Sorry, that's alright.
Now moving to weathering, I get my weathering powders out. I don't use these very often, but these are by Forge World, and I have some Tamiya Weathering Master ones. I've got the B pack. I use some black soot, and I work my way around the running plate as well as the cab and the smoke box. I really like how this looks. It's very dirty, and it looks kind of how I imagined it was going to look, so that excited me quite a lot. Just use my brush to prod and squish it around into those areas and just start adding so much texture to it. You can really see the features popping as you're doing this. I then use the rust from a Tamiya set, and that looks very nice. I'd found that when I painted on that rusty colour, it's very coppery, and I wasn't too keen on it, so this kind of dulled down that shine, so I was very pleased with it. I've looked at where you have all the ash pan and everything. On the pictures that looks rusty, and I've seen many other people do this process and do these areas, so big thank you to all the people that have done videos on these types of things. It is very much appreciated. Then one of my favourite bits, again, Mouldy Rasberrys, so he makes all the inside of the tender go rusty, and I thought, yes, that looks brilliant. I want to do that on Mon because it does look smart, and you can work your way around and you can add more of the weathering powder to make it brighter if you want. You can mix it with some other colours so it's not so bright, but having the brighter colours, I guess that's more fresh rust that's coming through or whatever, and just tuck it through your different areas. After that, I wanted to make the top where the smoke would have come out the chimney, leaving soot, first place for it to go. I worked my way across the top of the boiler and run it down the sides a little bit and really show that this thing's been working hard. We're lucky that the boiler is actually black still and shiny. And then I did play with some of the brighter colours in just kind of, using the snowy white colour. And just kind of lighten things up, and really enjoyed this. You can start brightening things up in certain places. The applicators I wasn't so sure about from Tamiya, but you can make it go streaky when you do the lines, so that's kind of nice. It's not just got one uniform colour and splodge. I kind of work little bits in and then I draw little lines down with the sponge, so really pleased with how it looks. Please leave a comment about what you think I could do better next time. I'm not claiming to be any expert. I'm doing this as an experiment for having a go, and I wanted to share with you me doing it, see what you think. So this is the loco looking great. I'm happy. Let's look at another loco. Using some very stodgy PVA glue that I have, I put some in and kind of mushed it around with the end of a paintbrush. I don't want to put my paintbrush anywhere near this stuff because it's so stodgy. And then I add some coal, just step by step, dropping it in until it gets to a level that I feel, okay, that's what I want to do. You could have just a little bit in there, as they might have at the end of a tough run, or you can stack it full so it's almost bellowing over. I added little bits in the back of the tender because I felt that's a good idea. Then use isopropyl alcohol, and the isopropyl alcohol releases that surface tension. So when you put the water down, PVA glue on there, it drops down, wicks into it nicely and glues it really well. Just give it a little bit of time to dry and you'll be fine, and dab off any excess. Can't really have locos going around without a crew, so we get out a crew set, and we need to paint them. This is a BR crew. I've only ever painted up the Great Western ones, but this will be pretty simple. They're mostly one colour because it looks like overalls, and they'll be kind of a worn out blue colour. So I start off doing a white primer, which is the standard when I'm painting blue, because it allows me to put some thin blue layers on and build up to get what we want and get the skin tones the way that we want to get them. I use a Vallejo primer, and I get my trusted brush out, which has got an ergonomic shape, and I can start getting all the areas that I like. And I start with a darker tone, and then I can build up with lighter tones over the top. I do water them down. It does look like I'm putting a lot on here, but it's very watered down paint, so when it does dry, you end up having all the details left on afterwards, and it looks much better than you think it will. So you just have to persevere, keep adding more and more of the lighter tones. And I'm working with my small paint brushes, all the little areas that will benefit the different colours. So the shirt underneath, I wanted to make that lighter, and then I give it a small dry brushing over their clothing to pick out the little details and the creases and things like that, and that's nice. Then paint the hats black. I didn't do a glossy coat in these afterwards, but they looked okay. Get their shoes, and then I paint up the shovel. I add in a few little details of watered down black paint just to pop out some of the details, because from behind you're going to see the most. Then use some of my Guilderman flesh tone from the contrast paints that Citadel do, and that allows us to get the details of the drivers really. And I think these look alright. I'm not the best painter in the world, but I feel I can paint a uniform on them if I need to. I get some greys now and just touch up little areas to make things stand out. And after that, I just varnish them just to protect them. Just some matte varnish, just to dull everything back down and to allow them to be protected. Now I add in some cab detail. I didn't record any of me actually doing the inside because you can't see. It's very difficult to get the camera there. But I get out my paintbrush and voila! That's the inside of the cab. Some coppery bits, red handles, painted some dials in there. And now we just need to add the people. We drop them in place. You get to hold on to the regulator or whatever. You've got a left hand driving set. So that should be good. On my Great Western Railway ones, they're right hand drive. So it's exciting. I have to go on the other side now. There's one last thing to do now, which is to get the body off and look at the mechanism and find out where this noise is coming from. It's a simple extraction of chassis, but I did notice there was lots of kind of filings of the body inside it. So we give that a quick clean off with a brush, and then we can investigate a bit more of what's going on. Running the wheels round, I had to clean them anyway because we got some airbrush paint on there. Get it nice and clean and working very, very nicely. It doesn't take too much, just some isopropanol alcohol, and it gets nice. I then use some lithium grease. I guess you can use a whole bunch of different things, and I cover all the axles and the gears, so then that's at least covered and will be running smoothly. And I kind of run it to see if we can get rid of the sound, and it does start going a little bit, but it's still not gone. What I end up doing is put it on the worm gear and squash it into the bearing by the motor. Yes, I could probably squirt some oil in there, but the lithium grease, pack that in, that'll be there for a long time. And really, I think that's kind of reduced it. There was a vibration, must have been coming from the bearing in the motor, and that was doing the damage. You know, it's an old loco, probably could do with just a new motor in there. I just need to find out where to get them from. But I'm happy with it. I'll screw it back together. I'll take some pictures of it in the garden, ready for my thumbnail. I think it looks brilliant, if I'm honest. I'm slightly biased because it's my work, but we'll go to the layout, we'll run it round, and we'll have some fun with it. The little squeak that sounds like a chicken went away after a little bit of time, and if I'm honest with you, I'm really pleased with it. I like the way when you look at the side of this loco and you see all that motion on the side with the valves and the cylinders pumping backwards and forwards. It's really nice to look at. It got better and better at running as well. The wobble did go over time. I've run this loco a lot since obviously filming this video, and I'm really pleased. For £35 to then have this, it's not every day you get that bargain, but when it comes up you've just got to go for it, and I am really honestly extremely pleased. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope that you might have a go at doing some weathering yourself. I'm not a perfect example of how to weather. There's a lot of books out there, a lot of experts that have shared that knowledge over the years. I'm not one of them, but over time I'll hopefully learn a bit more and I can share my journey with you as I do with this channel. I'd like to say a massive thank you to everyone that has subscribed to the channel so far and that has watched it as well. I hope that you will keep watching. If you aren't already a subscriber, please click subscribe, like it if you liked it, comment and let me know what you thought of it. I would be very interested. And a huge thank you to my patrons and channel members. Without your support this would be much harder. See you on the next video. Please take care. Bye.